Morning. Welcome to the District 3 April. Yeah, April, right? April community meeting. We'll get started in just a second as we got folks still coming in. Hey, Marshall. Good to see you. Tanisha. Give it one more minute. We're on location here today at Toomer Elementary. The parent appreciation room full of parents excited about Toomer. It's really fun. We're at Cone actually, but we're soon to be at Toomer. All right, I think we're gonna get good morning, good morning, good morning. I think we'll get started. Should give it one more minute, Keith, or are we okay to get going?
We can give it one more minute, but as people come in, I'm in the man, so totally up to you.
All right. Do one more thing here. Do this. Let's see. Perfect. Okay. Well, yeah, let's get started. So, good morning, everybody. Ken Zeff, District 3 representative here. As I mentioned, I'm at Toomer Elementary. We have a Toomer parent PTA appreciation breakfast this morning. I snuck out of, but Caroline Brown's doing a great job leading a room of parents celebrating teachers. And so it's really exciting to watch. Okay, let's do a couple quick norms, then we'll dive into today's meeting. Again, the purpose of these meetings is to both share a little bit what's going on in the district, but really to hear your perspective. It's not a decision-making meeting, it's an information gathering meeting. So the way I like to do these things is we share a little bit we share a little bit of content of what's going on for 15-20 minutes, then the rest of this time we're in conversation. I really want to hear from you all. Keith will be directing traffic when we get there. Just a couple norms. This is day 100 for me, so here we are. We made it. It's the first 100 days, they say, are the most exciting. It's been coming fast and furious, but I do continually ask for folks grace if we're still learning, still trying to figure out all the who's who and where and who's doing what, but excited for all the support I've received. Let's always presume good intent on these calls. Everyone we know cares about our kids, and so we're all trying to get to the same place. Let's give and make space so folks are heard. We will be monitoring the chat, or Keith will be monitoring the chat. And so either folks from the district who are on the call, or if I can, I will chime in on those. We are going to stick to an hour to respect folks' time. I do have a newsletter. I'll put the link in the chat where we try to send out every month some things that are going on. And so I'll put that in the chat along with my contact information as we get going. All right, so we'll start out with some board meeting updates, then we'll talk a little bit about the key topics today, which I think are the budget and the charter oversight process that we're fortunate to have Matt on the call to help us walk through. First of all, the AP STEM or AP updates AP honor roll came out from the state, and all the high schools that District 3 serves were well represented. North Atlanta, Jackson, Drew, all on the AP honor roll. So we're excited for the hard work that's happening in those schools. Excited for the rigor, because AP, what it gets me excited about AP is it means rigor's happening, and the fact that the state recognizes that means that our kids are the beneficiaries of that. Go Teams elections just closed. Over 400 folks declared for to sit on a Go Team. I think Go Teams are the beating heart of governance in the system, and so I was excited to see that. Excited to see all that engagement. Those elections closed. I'm looking forward to celebrating and working with the folks that emerged from that process. All right, let's have a quick update on the superintendent search process. No news to break today. I think folks have been following along. Folks know that we've extended the search process. We went through, we closed it. We looked at a bunch of candidates. We talked to some folks, and the board came to the decision that we didn't see it. We didn't see the next superintendent in the pool, and so we're going to be meeting over the next couple of weeks to reopen that process. We're fortunate to have Dr. Battle stay with us and continue to guide the system through the end of the calendar year. We haven't agreed on a timeline yet. The board hasn't nailed that down yet. My suspicion is that that there will be we'll be starting again in the fall, and the goal is to have that transition be in January, so over winter break, to have the new superintendent come on. It is a little bit off cycle, but it has been done before, and so we're confident that if we got enough lead time in to get this right. We still plan on doing all of the same public processes that we did before around the community panel to make sure that we hear the representation from interviews from a group of community folks to help inform the board's decision. But that process will be more detail about the timeline hasn't been set yet, so I don't really have any news to break there. The board's going to be meeting over the next couple of weeks to navigate that timeline. The good news is we have an experienced leader who's great for culture, great for moving the district forward, and so we're excited to have Dr. Battle in that seat, and thankful that she's agreed to continue to shepherd us over the next I guess 7-8 months. So that's all the news that I have right there right now on that. There will be over the next couple of weeks, the board will be releasing more details around the timeline and what y'all should expect from the community. All right, the next topic I wanted to talk about was the budget. We're early still in budget season. We're in the midway through the budget process, and I want to share a slide if I can. Let me see if I can navigate this. I know folks have been attending the budget meetings, and so I think the district does a pretty good job of sharing these commission meetings online. But there's one slide that I'm going to share. I didn't ask Lisa Bracken to join us. Is that slide showing up? Yeah. Oh, good. I see it is. Okay. So this is the summary of where we are right now. And I would say that this is nothing's been voted on yet. This is just current thinking. But there's 4 things I want to there's some good news here, and there's some news that I want to make sure we're paying attention to. To me, the good lines are on the expenditure side. Starting at the bottom, the compensation. There's a compensation increase pretty dramatic, and when we vote on this budget, our teachers should be the highest paid teachers in Metro Atlanta. That's our plan. It might not be the same case around on every single level because you have different steps and lanes and depending on where you are in your career, but we've made a really, really visible commitment to our teachers so they know that because look, we don't make anything. we're teachers in front of kids and in the presence of content. And so this budget represents deep investment in our teacher core, and I've already talked to teachers and shared this news, and they're really excited about it. I'm particularly excited because I think there's no better place to make our investments. The readers are leaders, so this was another thing that was really important to me in the budget process. We can make big gains in literacy, but we need to make investments in instructional coaches and in high quality material. And so we've set aside almost $8.5 million in the budget to accommodate that. And so that investment, again, budgets are moral documents. They tell you what's important. And so I think this budget signals what is important to us as a district, both our teachers and making sure that our kids have the literacy supports so they can make the gains that they need to make. Moving next, the next line I've highlighted is central office. I think there's some important right sizing that's happened here. And actually this number actually understates. So it looks like it's down just about 12 million bucks. It's actually a little bit more than that because you had the belt tightening was even stronger because you had benefit increases. And so that were born within that number. So I give Dr. Battle and her team credit for really digging deep and making those key restructurings that needed to happen. I'm not sure we're done, but we've made a really, really important step forward there. And I know those right sizing can be hard, and so I'm thankful to our central office team for helping to be a part of making this transition smooth. But I think again, it was one of the things that was important to me was making sure that our central office supports match the size of our district, and I think we're getting closer there. The piece that has me that I think is a little bit of a cause for a watch out is that we are dipping into fund balance to cover this budget. We're still at 15%, which we're excited about. That's where we want to be, but we want to make sure that we are efficient at using our tax dollars. I think that Dr. Bracken laid out some long-term plans that we need to take in place. We have to think about how to make sure that we're stretching, that we're not over, we don't have two more schools than we need, that we're not spending too much money on schools and not enough money on kids. And so we have to look at our facility portfolio and make sure that we're right size. That's something that's going to happen over the next year. Make sure that our district map looks like our population centers. That's work that needs to happen. But at least I feel good about this budget. You know, if the headlines from this budget are highest paid teachers in the city or in the region, deep investments in literacy, no millage increase, and keeping our reserve where it needs to be, then I can feel good as a board member that we're moving in the right direction. So let me pause there, and I've gone through a bunch of content. I want to take Keith, if we want to do some questions, and then when we get a break, then we can move to the charter update from Matt. So Keith, do you mind taking us through? I haven't been watching the chat and see if there's questions that folks have.
Yep. So do you want you want to open it up, or do you want it specific to the budget?
I think we can open it up for
Okay.
if we can start with any questions about the superintendent process or the budgets. Those are the two
Gotcha.
topics we talked about.
Okay.
And then I'd love to take some time because I do think we had an important conversation about charter oversight that I want to make sure we can save some time.
And so good morning, District 3 community and just APS stakeholders. We have reached a portion of our meeting where we would like to hear directly from you to engage with board member Zeff or to APS administration. And so as many of you have already done, we do ask that you place your hand into a queue so we can hear directly from you. We do ask again, because we do have an hour for this meeting, that you get directly to your question or comment, so that we are able to hear from those who wish to provide comments and engage with us. And so with that being said, I think we see Lauren hand first, and then we'll go to Waukesha. Good morning, Lauren.
Hey Ken, how you doing?
Good, Lauren.
I had a couple questions about the superintendent search. Because you mentioned that you said that the community will be, are you talking about the community panel when you're referencing the community piece? Is it going to be the same community panel that was named before? Or are you guys naming a new one or replacing members or?
So we haven't, so I appreciate the question. We haven't had that question specifically. My expectation would be nothing has changed that we wouldn't use those. That felt like a really representative group. I mean, obviously, you know, you can always add more folks to it. So we haven't had that question specifically, but those folks were trained, and so they did receive some orientation. We never put candidates in front of them, so they haven't participated in the process yet. But yeah, my expectation is that you know, obviously schedules are going to be scheduling may be an impact, but that we would keep that same construct.
Okay, and then can I have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Okay, and then you mentioned that the reason why you guys extended the search was because you looked at the candidate pool and didn't see it there, so decided to extend it. But I thought previously it was said that it was because there was an information breach.
Yeah, so I appreciate thanks for raising that question, Lauren. So I think these two topics got a little I think there was some overlap in the mixing of these two topics. So the short the candidate that we saw as the next superintendent, we didn't see it in the pool. The separate from that, the process needs to get tighter, and we're working on that because we want to make sure that we respect candidate privacy, because if you know, one of the concerns of making the process so public is that it chills new candidates who are currently, you know, the person that we want for this job is doing really well in their current gig right now and is well loved and well respected by their board. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I don't want to speak for the board. The person that's the type of candidate that we get really excited about. We want to make sure that we create an environment where they feel like they're not putting their entire career at risk to compete for this job. And so I think there's a separate, to me, there are two issues. They're both very important, but the idea of getting the pool right that's the first step, and then making sure that the process is tight and that we're not that information isn't escaping from the process is the second step. So sorry if those two things got confused. We did not stop the process because of the of information getting out. We extended the process because we didn't have the right candidate there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Our next speaker is Waukesha. Good morning, Waukesha.
Hey, good morning. I want to piggyback off of Lauren because we heard something completely different. We did hear about the breach, and I think if we have an open process, we don't have to worry about a breach. But let's get on the topic of the panel. I heard that people had to be removed, and I know personally from my own eyes that people have donated to the candidates camp, donated to board members campaign. I think that that is a conflict of interest, and we need to start following some rules around here because that shouldn't take place at all. If you donated to a candidate, you should not be on these panels, committees, or anything like that. That's just not a good look. And if we want to help kids learn and do the right thing, we got to start by the leaders, the adults setting good examples. I was going to ask you, so two things. Ishay told us on this topic, she told our community, this the South Side, that you guys was ready to name someone this month, this week, actually, she told our community. So this is why I would say it should be an open process because I don't think y'all are on the same page. And if y'all are not on the same page, we're not going to get somebody good. And that's not good for our children. The other thing is, two things. Have you started having the conversation about the governor approving a voucher bill and the effect that it will have on enrollment? And also, have you thought about starting to have conversations about overcrowdedness? Because I'm trying to be proactive when I keep saying this. If we can start getting those conversations started before the fall, then when the principals and staff go in to do these schedules, it don't have to be a thing where kids got to go learn online, they can't be in the building, etc. So that's a lot, but you can always reach out to me.
I appreciate it, Waukesha. So I got a couple things here that I heard, and let me just tick through them. So Ishay's announcement, I think, was before the board agreed to extend the search. It was our original timeline that
Yes.
we would. I got on this call last month and said that we were gonna. I mean, that was our timeline. That was our hope. It didn't work out that way, and it was a unanimous decision of the board, and so. It wasn't a question of will, it was a question of we just didn't get there. So I think we all wanted the same thing. It just couldn't get there. On the voucher bill is a good question. You know, the governor just signed it. I have a lot of concerns about what the impact is going to be on Atlanta public schools. A few of you have emailed me separately about it. As far as I can tell you, the governor, they haven't laid out the rules and the processes yet of what that's going to do to enrollment.
Right.
I gotta tell you though, I don't think many parents, the way it's structured at $6,500, and I don't want to get too weedsy on this conversation here, but you only get, just so folks know, you basically get $6,500 to go to a private school effectively. There's a few variations on that theme, but that's, to me, is not enough to get folks to go to,
Right.
Right? So to me, I feel like it's more of a wealth transfer to folks that have already made that decision. And so that's why I have deep reservations about the bill. And I've publicly said that to me, it's intellectually dishonest that if you really believed in this, then you would go the whole way. They don't want to go the whole way to really help kids out. Again, I have separate issues with that. But so I actually don't think it's going to have a huge effect on our enrollment, but I think it's too early to say. And we're definitely going to keep an eye on that. And then the last question you had about overcrowding is something that that we've been watching very carefully. And Travis, maybe you can tell folks what the timeline is for the because I don't have the dates in my head and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you know when we go through that review and when we make those announcements to schools.
For specific to kind of capacity and things like that.
And the annual capacity process.
Yeah, so I think the challenges, and I mentioned it during our budget commission meeting about a week ago. Our current annual review happens in kind of February is when we share data, and we start community conversations in March, but then things aren't impacted until a year or so later if there is any rezoning. The challenges with the budget gap and bigger conversations and strategic planning conversations, we need to start those conversations before February of this year. So I expect them to start as soon as school starts, and for me to have a plan for everyone on what the fall looks like before school starts as well.
That's our expectation too. And so I appreciate you raising that, Waukesha. We do need to make sure that we stay ahead of this work and
forgive me, because Travis have been upfront about making sure he get the information out. Every meeting I go in, I ask that same question. He give the answer that he can give. I was just asking the board members to have a conversation with their constituents so that they can hear from the families what's happening, because see, we have a lot of development here and we just don't know how many people are actually going to move in whatever unit or house. And I know I go to the meetings, I know that Midtown is really, they're full, but we do have some schools that's not so full around APS. It's not just certain sites, it's around APS. And so I just felt like some schools was being picked at, which we got that taken care of. But I just wanted us to be proactive about getting ahead of the conversation. Now, you mentioned something about the budget shortfall. Is that like the millions of dollars that's missing or something, Travis?
Sorry, no. I was sharing mostly that our expenditures continue to increase while our revenue may not increase at that same rate. And so we just have to be aware of that gap and do as good a job as possible as prioritizing those resources going where they're needed most.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you one tip that I heard from the Go team. They saying that like APS order a lot of things that don't get used. So if we could try to go green and not spend as much money on certain things, I think we could possibly save some money. So I just want to drop it because I heard it.
Thank you, Waukesha. I appreciate as always, appreciate you pushing us and challenging us to be as responsive to our community as possible. Keith, you want to keep us going?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Waukesha. Our next speaker is Tamara. Good morning, Tamara.
Hey, Tamara.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Trying to stay busy.
Very good. I'm going to start with following up on that because, the scheduling for the high school students for the next couple of years, regardless of what we decide to do, about the overcrowding, if anything, it continues to be an issue. We've heard from the kids now their lunch is shorter because they can't get through the hallways and they've changed the schedule. But just getting scheduled for classes, there's talk of reducing the number of AP classes. It's just so that scheduling is easier. So these are having real impacts on students in the short term. Just to keep that in mind, is not something that just, we decide not to do something and then nothing happens for 2 or 3 years. So there's things happening in the interim as well. I keep hearing from these discussions that the population projections are supposed to decline in this cluster in the high school. And we've been told, for the last 15 years that we're in a bubble. And the decline never happens. So just that's a little bit of historic perspective to keep in mind. And listening to the SINS data dig yesterday, when they showed the chart of the growth in the cluster over time, the trend does not seem to be flattening. So I just wanted everybody to, keep it in our minds, that, we're going to have to continue to focus on this. The other one is going back to the superintendent search. The public has gotten no communication to the effect of what you said, about their not having been, a viable candidate in the pool that was in front of you. The only thing I've seen is in the news. And that wasn't part of the statement. So that was just a little confusing to hear that. So I might have another question later, but that is I'll let everybody else sort of get in queue.
I appreciate that, Tamara. And so just on the, let me take the last part first, superintendent search. So when I think the statement's been updated on the superintendent search on the webpage. I agree with you that we didn't move as cleanly as maybe we could have through the process. I think we're still coming together. But I think it's a consensus among the board that the right and I don't want to say there's any, I think it's about match and fit. It's not about the quality of the candidates. And so I want to be really clear about that. It's just about match and fit for what we need is what we think we need as a system. And I share your concerns about the enrollment projections. I mean, we're going to watch it closely, see what fall looks like. The team's been analyzing this very, very, very carefully. I suspect that we'll see where we are in the fall, and then we're gonna have to make some hard decisions, depending on where the data takes us.
All right. So thank you, Tamara. Our next speaker would be Jennifer. Good morning, Jennifer.
Hey, good morning. I have a question about the school budget cuts with the reserves being cut. I'm the vice chair of the Midtown Go team, and we voted on a budget that included those full reserves. So, two questions. What is the process? Do we need to revisit the budget? And secondly, what non-school budgets were cut to address the deficit?
So I think we're talking about the school budgets versus the district budget. So,
Correct.
okay, so give me your question again, Jennifer. So you're
Sure.
Yeah.
So the school budgets, the reserves were cut because there's a budget deficit. Another way to address the budget deficit would be to cut central office or to cut non-school reserves. So what efforts were made to find other ways to address the budget deficit rather than removing money from the school's reserves?
So the central office budgets were cut about 12 million bucks, and actually, I won't go through the detail. We can put I think somebody might have put the budget commission report in the chat. But because of health benefits, it was actually cut quite substantially. But look, the larger question of APS has enough money to do anything it wants, just not enough money to do everything it wants, and so we've had this strategy of we're going to have small schools, and we're going to have high student to teacher or low student to teacher ratio, and we're going to be the top compensation or high compensation in the district or in the region, and we can't afford all of that. And so we're going to have to, so we got through this current budget by prioritizing teacher compensation, cutting the central office, but having to tap into reserves. That's not a long-term strategy. And we know that's not a long-term strategy. And so over the next year, and so the guidance that the board gave to Dr. Battle was, we need a plan. We need a plan that's going to get us right size, so we don't dip into reserves, because that's no way to sustain it, especially with this impending cap on revenue of 3%. We need to make changes. So I hear you. The board hears you. We've got some work ahead of us, even though we feel good about this year's budget.
Right,
Or
and then one
can I
other
add
quick
something?
point to follow up on some points have been made about overcrowding. Again, there's a lot of skepticism as to whether the bubble is happening and enrollment at Midtown is going to go down. I think the community needs a commitment that if, or more likely when, that does not come to fruition, that APS is going to take action. So they've kicked the can down the road for years and years and years. And now they're using this demographic study as an excuse to wait just a few more years. So if the bubble is supposed to burst in 3 years and Midtown enrollment is supposed to go down, what happens in 3 years when it doesn't? We need a commitment that action will be taken, because we certainly can't be told, well, we were just off by a few years. Actually, the bubble's going to, we need 3 more years and then enrollment will start to go down, because that statement can be made in perpetuity. And in the meantime, the Midtown community is suffering. There's overcrowding in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in the libraries, in the cafeteria. The only assessment that APS has done is how many classrooms we can cram into Midtown. And we have been asking APS, what analysis have you done of the common spaces, of the parking lot? There's a lot more to a school than the number of students you can cram into a classroom. And that information has not been shared. In the meantime, Midtown overcrowding gets worse and worse and worse. So I hope that APS doesn't continue to kick the can down the road and wait for this amorphous bubble to happen. Midtown's having to cut kids from sports, from theater. This is impacting every student at Midtown. You can't just use a classroom formula to figure out how many kids you can cram into that campus.
I appreciate it, Jennifer. I got 2 kids there too. And I appreciate Dr. Bachman. I think I saw her on this call. I appreciate her commitment, or her finding a way to make a difficult situation work. Yeah, we have to, you know, we're relying on the demographic data. The demographic data does not show up. We will make changes, understanding that the changes are not easy, and this is not an easy problem to solve. But I agree that that Dr. Bachman's been asked to do more than she should have had to ask. We've asked a lot of her, and I appreciate her rising to the occasion. And we're gonna follow the process that Travis has laid out and try and make sure that if the enrollment bubble doesn't show up, that we do have the hard conversations with the community.
I think you can, and I'm sure you hear frustration in my voice. I just want to clarify, it is not with you. And I appreciate all of the work that you're doing, and I'm so excited that you're on the school board. So I just want to make that clear. It's frustration with, well, truthfully, central office. So thank you very much for doing this. And I hope that the people from central office who are on this call, you know, heard those comments, because yeah, I just wanted to make clear that the frustration is not directed at you. So thank you so much for all you do.
Look, we're on the same team. I appreciate it, Jennifer. Thank you.
Travis, you good?
Yeah, I put in a chat a
Okay.
couple of things. And from central office, I hear you, Jennifer. I'm also hope to be on that same team that y'all are on as well. So I hope we don't think we're on different teams.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. We'll go back to Tamara and then to Waukesha.
Thank you. And to repeat a little bit, I've been a parent in this cluster for 17 years, and I've heard about this bubble for almost that entire time. So, it is a real thing that we keep getting told that there's a bubble and then it doesn't happen. To go back to the, and I do appreciate, you having your finger on that, and Travis and everybody else as well. What I love about the facilities master plan is that it came out with a yearly evaluation, and I hope we honor that obligation that we have and really take a examining lens to it, and not continue to talk about bubbles that may or may not materialize. So to go back to the budget piece that Jennifer was talking about, with the reserves, that's when we do a budget at a school level. What we usually do is we have a holdback, like a percentage of the budget that's held back, in case that, the enrollment doesn't materialize, for instance. So that's where you bake into the budget the possibility that there's just some sudden decline in enrollment, right? And that, then the money wouldn't follow the kid, kind of thing. So in the past, Midtown and other schools have relied on getting that holdback because they know they're going to get that enrollment back, the following year, to make their budget work. So when she says the reserves are cut, that's what she means. So when the school is doing its budget, that holdback is gone now. And so that is an actual decline in the money that's given to schools. So it's not extremely obvious, but it is. So, and with a school where, you know, every dollar counts, you know, in a school like Midtown spends all of its, you know, school-based allotment on staff, that has a material impact. And I just want to make everybody aware that that is a fairly large budget issue. And then I'll cede the microphone.
I appreciate that, Tamara. And yeah, I mean, so there is they are. My understanding is Dr. Bracken wanted to make, I will work diligently to make sure that Midtown gets all the dollars that's entitled to. And so as kids show up, money will follow kids. Matter of fact, there's a rider in the budget to make sure that as overcrowding, that I think Midtown gets another $230,000 this year to accommodate that. But it's something we'll look into that and make sure that all those dollars are flowing appropriately to Midtown.
Thank you. I appreciate that because, you know, at Midtown, that money did not go unused.
No, right. I know it was more of a global, district-wide maneuver, as I understand it. But Midtown will get all the dollars that it's entitled to.
Well, in addition to the $200,000, because that
correct.
that holdback was.
Those are two. I was introducing another point.
Okay.
Yes,
that holdback is a significant sum. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So Keith, I see Waukesha has one more question. I'd love to, Waukesha, I want to get your question in that. I'd love to create some space for Matt to give a quick couple slides on charter oversight. And so, because I do think that was something that came up at the last budget. And so, so maybe Waukesha, if you had another comment, and then we can go to Matt.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on the part about staff. If you go to the cluster advisory meeting, they ask about the different things that happen in each school and like the schools that don't have enough teachers. I know we talk about paying teachers more and they deserve more, but teachers didn't leave APS because they wasn't paid decent or fairly. They left because they felt like APS was giving them too much to do. So if we can get to the point of making sure we have a clear plan of them teaching the students and not doing all these sidebars, I think we can keep them and they are appreciative of what they do earn, but it's always room to get more. So I want to lift that up because we're hearing a lot about teacher pay, but that's not the reason why they leave the district.
I think that's well said, Waukesha. And someone put in the chat, culture and climate. That's exactly right. Those things become more acute when pay is low. This is one thing I think Dr. Battle's done a really nice job with is going, and I've been on some of these school visits with her, is really looking teachers in the eye, thanking them for the work. And then, you know, part of the central office, and you know, this is a more complicated conversation, but I'm a central office guy. I came from the central office, and I know that when you have a lot of departments in the central office, a lot of times that leads to more work to the schools because there's more reports that have to be written, more data that has to be followed up on. And so I think we need to, you know, it's not an easy problem to solve, but yes, I do think we need to make the job doable. You look at the survey data, teachers are leaving because the job is undoable, just like folks have said, because of burnout. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support our teachers. And you're right, money is, if we cannot go to bed at night thinking, well, we're paying them, and so that's enough. It is necessary, but it's not sufficient. All right, so Matt, I'd love to, if you could share. So this is going to be a little bit of a pivot. But it was something that came up in the board meeting. I just think it's worth it, since we have 20 minutes left. The piece that Matt Underwood from the charter office gave a presentation at the last board meeting about the state of the charter of charters in APS. And what I particularly appreciated was the oversight that his office does to make sure that the charters who are not performing that there is some accountability. And so, Matt, if you don't mind, just maybe sharing a slide or two from that, and then if we want to take a few questions so folks feel good about the oversight, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Underwood. I'm the executive director of the Office of Charter and Partner Schools. And in case we do run out of time, I put in the chat a link to the presentation that board member Zeff referred to that I'm going to share just a couple slides from. as well as a link to our website where we've got some other reports and information that you might find useful and interesting. So let's see. Yes. So just real briefly for those who may not be, oops, excuse me, still seeing the slideshow here. Okay, good. For those who may not be familiar with what our office does, we primarily focus on monitoring of charter and partner schools with the requirements and goals in charter and partner contracts. But we also provide support and thought partnership to these schools. These are APS students enrolled in these APS schools, and we want to see them succeed. So we provide support, helping them to leverage some of the resources the district may have to help them achieve their mission and meet their goals. And then these are just a few examples of some of the ways that we provide monitoring, support, and collaboration and help facilitate that across the district for charter and partner schools in APS. So I'm going to jump way ahead here to a few of the slides that board member Zeff wanted me to focus on. As I mentioned, our primary responsibility in the Office of Charter and Partner Schools is serving as the district's primary oversight and monitoring body for these schools and APS. And so each of the charter and partner schools has a contract with the district. The link I shared in the chat a moment ago to our office website has those contracts in their entirety. So you can look at them yourselves and see what those requirements are. But for charter schools, what we have developed is a performance framework that assesses these schools across 5 different domains, and we assess them through a variety of data sources. So it's not just their performance on Georgia milestones and CCRPI. We do site visits to schools. We attend charter school board meetings. We do desk audits of their website to make sure that information that's required to be there for the public is there. So we are looking at, first and foremost, academic performance of charter schools. So not just that they are meeting targets in their contract relative to their own school's performance, but that their performance is stronger than students at their school would experience if they were attending their zone public school. So we look at the schools that students who are attending a charter school would otherwise attend if they were not at that charter school, to see that their performance, both in academic achievement and growth as a school, is higher than those other schools. We also look at school climate. So the state has a climate star rating. Most of the charter schools also have in their charter contracts diversity targets that they're aiming to hit for economically disadvantaged students. And so under Georgia law, they're allowed to use a weighted student admissions lottery for students who come from economically disadvantaged households. We look at their performance relative to those targets. And then we monitor their financial performance. So each charter school is required to have an independent financial audit. So in addition to our quarterly monitoring of charter school finances, we look at that independent audit to make sure that the school has, both in the short term and the long term, the financial resources to survive and is really budgeting and forecasting accurately. We look at operational performance. So are the schools reporting the things that they need to report to the state? Are they complying with due process requirements for students when it comes to student discipline? All the sort of legal and regulatory compliance falls under that bucket of operational performance. And then lastly is governance. So as I mentioned, we monitor charter school board meetings, attend board meetings, review board meeting agendas and minutes to ensure that those schools are complying with Open Meetings Act regulations. But then also there is a component of charter school law in the state that requires charter school board members to meet certain training requirements each year. And so we help to certify that those board members have done so. So all of that monitoring that happens annually, we put together a summary of in an annual report that's it's on our website that I linked in the chat a little while ago. And of course, and I'll get into this in a moment, if there are instances where a charter school is not complying or out of compliance with a provision of their contract, we have a few different ways that we follow up and intervene in those instances. So as I mentioned, we take a summary of all that monitoring data that we compile and put it in the annual report. This is just a snapshot view. There's a much longer report on the website of performance from last school year, the 22-23 school year for each of our charter organizations. So all of the charter schools were in compliance with the school climate, finance, operations, and governance components of their charter contract under our performance framework. But there were 9 charter schools that didn't meet on one or more indicators of their academic performance requirements. And so you can see those highlighted here. This is just a little bit deeper drill down on those 9 schools and the particular indicators that they did not meet on. And again, this is a range of measures that we look at. So you could have a school that's meeting on one indicator and not meeting on others. And that's on this dashboard here. So then what do we do in terms of intervention of any sort when a school is not meeting one or more compliance requirements or accountability goals? There may be an instance where a school is out of compliance, for example, on a state reporting requirement, which is something we had last school year. And so in that instance, we follow up with the school, send them what's called a letter of concern or a letter of direction. Any of those that we've sent are on our website that I just linked in the chat a little while ago, asking them to correct whatever that non-compliance issue is and take appropriate action. And in all instances, the schools do so, and we document that. If there are broader performance concerns, particularly around academic performance, as was the case with those schools that I showed on the slide a moment ago, there may be a case where a school is put on probation under their terms of their charter contract, or if they are renewed, as a couple of these organizations were recently, it can be a conditional renewal where there are certain performance requirements above and beyond what's in their charter contracts that these schools will have to meet in order to continue to operate as a charter school in APS. So as you'll see in that middle section here on probation, the last bullet point, Centennial Academy and a few of the KIPP Metro Atlanta schools, charter schools, were on the state support and improvement list this past year. And so as a condition of their renewal, those schools must come off those lists the next time those state support and improvement lists are calculated. Otherwise, they'll be brought immediately back to the Board of Education for consideration of termination of those charter contracts. And then obviously the kind of most extreme intervention we can take is terminating or not renewing a charter contract, which has happened a few times in the history of Atlanta Public Schools, where a charter contract was terminated early or not renewed because of ongoing compliance or performance concerns. But again, as I mentioned, all of those letters of direction, letters of concern, or conditional renewals are on our website as well. And then Ken, I don't know if you'd like me to briefly go through this section as well, or do you want to pause there and see if folks have any questions?
Let's open it up. I mean, I think the reason I asked Matt to and thank you Matt for sharing this is we need to. I really want to move us as a district to getting away from charters are good, charters are bad, to low performing charters need to take direct action. We need to take direct action. And I think, as Lizzie put in the chat, we need to not continue. It's a privilege to educate our kids. It's not a right. And so if a school is not performing, we need to be clear that it's not performing. We need to take other options. At the same time, if a charter is serving its kids well and parents are happy, then I'm okay with leaving space for that. And so under careful watch from the district. And so what I really want to, and my vision for our charter network is tightly regulated and making sure that folks are doing what they said they were going to do, and if they're not doing what they said they were going to do, that they discontinue that work. But if they are providing meaningful choice for parents, I can live with that, because a lot of parents are able to exercise choice by where they live and buying property. Some parents don't have that opportunity, and so I want to create meaningful choice for them. And so I'm happy to take if there's questions. I know we have a few minutes left, but part of our oversight responsibility is this annual report and being really transparent and really public about where we are as a sector. So are there questions in the chat? That there are questions, Keith?
Yeah, there are, well, not question. Well, Lindsay asked, I think Matt just asked that, answered that question, just if there has ever been any terminations or not renewals of any charting partners. So I think he just answered that one. But I do see Lorraine has her hand up.
Hi, Ken. Lorraine Hatch. I've been to your meetings before, but what I wanted to ask is your position on the Tapestry School, since they've resubmitted their charter application this year after being denied last year.
So it's great question. So it hasn't come before us formally. So we haven't seen the analysis yet. But I'll provide some preliminary thoughts without because I don't have the burden of the actual petition in front of me to give any concrete thoughts. I did take a visit to Tapestry. So just so folks know, Tapestry serves about 350 kids in DeKalb right now. And I'm not sure exactly what they're proposing for in Atlanta, but I think something similar. And they're kids that are moderate to severe, some autistic, some kids that don't fit in their regular school. I was impressed by what I saw at the when I visited the school in DeKalb. I saw kids kids that don't often fit in other schools. Getting a really feeling very included in what was happening in the school. I have not seen their academic performance and I've not seen their financial performance. So that's why I'm going to hesitate to provide any thoughtful analysis because those things are important as Matt just shared. So I need to get my arms around that and see what the administration says. But I will say this is a classic case of, we need to get away from all charters are good or all charters are bad and look at each individual case and see if they pass the bar that we've set and they'll be a meaningful addition to our district.
Well, just as a follow-up, I just want to point out that a small environment that focuses on different learners will also benefit kids who don't have IEPs. And we have lots of kids who don't qualify for IEPs because of, state standards or lack of resources. And, especially considering literacy, our literacy numbers in APS, I think it would just be a benefit, an addition to school choice and APS and a unique opportunity.
I appreciate your comments, Lauren.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for those comments. We'll go to Ms. Sherrill and then to Waukesha.
Good morning, Ken. Thank you for having this platform for us to be able to receive communication regarding our cluster and the district. But I want to ask the question. I didn't see the graduation requirements or any results on the slides that Mr. Underwood has in the chat. But the other thing I want to say is, why do we continue to wait and looking to see whether or not charter schools or partner schools or whatever school it may be is gonna provide the necessary and appropriate educational services for our children? We don't permit our children to wait. We continue to move them forward, and then you graduate them out without them having literacy. But then we allow schools to continue year after year after year without showing meaningful progress. I'm sorry. But this is a passionate thing for me because the student with disabilities always get left behind. But we continue to see if people are going to change, if systems is going to change, if programs are going to change. We're going to have to stop just accepting anything and everything as relates to education and find one thing, because everything is not one thing, but let's find the most appropriate thing, not attached to a person or a dollar, but what's appropriate, and stop kicking this can down the road, just like we're doing in Midtown, the cluster. We've had this overcrowdedness for a long time, and I know that because I've been in the cluster for the last 22 years. So, we're going to have to start addressing education and our children differently than just thinking of them as commodities. This is not going to work. We keep allowing charter school, partner schools, and our public schools to just continue at the bare minimum. And then you want to produce what? You want to put out what into the world? Our children are being left. I was looking at the numbers in Midtown. Come on, you got 71%, I think was in Centennial, but 9% are distinguished. I'm just wondering, is the 9% a part of the other portion? Because what numbers are you showing me? You're not showing me anything any differently than the public school is showing me. So I just want to know, first I want to see the graduation information, but you're not showing me anything. So can we do something different?
Thank you for that, Ms. Sherrill. And look, I share your sense of urgency, and that's why That's what gets me motivated about this work. I'll ask Matt to put the graduation rates in the chat, or I'm sure I'm sure that data is available. I thought it was in the presentation, but maybe I overlooked it.
Yeah, I can put that in the chat. Just to be clear, it was the graduation rate you were asking about, or you mentioned graduation requirements. I wasn't sure. Just to make sure I answer your question correctly.
Well, it talks about it talks about the student numbers, but it didn't tell you anything about the end results of where those students should go, which is ultimately graduation. So
yes,
we can get some numbers to show where they're going if they graduated. You know, just like we did yesterday. You knew that a number of students went to a 4-year college, and by the end of that 4-year, how many were still there? I don't see that in this particular presentation.
Yes. So I will just mention the specific details of the academic performance are in the actual annual report itself, not in the kind of summary snapshot I just showed there, but I just link in the chat grad rate data for the whole district. Each of the charter and partner schools has met or exceeded their graduation rate targets in their contract. The charter schools, because we track the performance of students as compared to the schools they would otherwise attend, all of those high schools had a graduation higher than the high school that the students would otherwise attend in the district as well. But the kind of more details are in this link here, as well as in the annual report on our website too.
And I would just add to you raise you know I can't I'm not going to disagree with anything you said, Ms. Sherrill, that we have a lot of work to do as a district. I think this budget is a step in the right direction. We're putting more money in schools. We're paying our teachers because look, teachers need to feel supported. I think this budget helps us with that. And I feel like this investment in literacy is the right investment. If we don't get literacy right, and we've seen other districts around the region be able to get this right, I think we're pointed in the right direction here, but we have to move with a sense of urgency and keep our foot on the gas. And I know we only have a couple minutes left. We have time for maybe one more question, and then
Yeah, I was gonna say, we will hear from Waukesha, and I'm sure she would, that dialogue will take us to that 12:30, that 10:30. I'm sorry. Then can you provide us with some closing remarks?
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. I just want to piggyback. In the whole process of Tapestry, applying, and they did get denied. But I think to Ms. Sherrill's point, and looking at Matt's presentation, we have to make sure that we are providing our children with the best choice, because we have schools that have not been doing so great, not have been taking care of our babies yet. They are still operating. And so with Tapestry, it's in a different area, more, it's a way higher. And here's the thing. We put these charter schools in poor Black and brown communities, and they pull away from our traditional schools. And what happened in the long run? Our schools have to look at school closure and merger because the numbers are so low. To Ms. Sherrill's point, we need the best option for our babies, and it's individual, to be honest. We need that in front of them, and we shouldn't be giving them 3 years, 5 years. You got 2 years top to turn something around. They said hooked on fun, your kid can learn to read in 30 days. So I don't even know how we giving all these people these long opportunities, but they can't wait, because to Ms. Sherrill's point, they keep graduating out of school. So we need to look at the best model, not the pretty presentation that's wrapped up in a bow, the best options for our baby moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Waukesha. And I think that's the inspiration that I think we're moving. That's the direction we have to go. We have to move with urgency. I feel like this budget gets us there. We got to get the superintendent right to lead this district, and those are the building blocks that are going to help move us forward. I appreciate people making time for this space. I'm going to commit to doing these monthly meetings. I think that's a little more frequent than maybe I originally thought I would do them, but I feel like there's enough engagement here and folks are following along. And so you can look for these meetings regularly. I put my information and the District 3, I also put out a newsletter every month. It's free. It's fun. Who doesn't love email, right? Another email to get. Please sign up for that. I want to thank Caroline Brown and the whole Toomer community for hosting for hosting me today in this beautiful windowless conference room here in Toomer Elementary and Cone. They're moving to Toomer next year. And again, thanks everybody for their engagement, and look forward to seeing you around town. And thanks again for supporting the good work at APS. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and your exit ticket is a wave.